Hello, everyone. It's me, Tracy Thomas, host of The Stacks. I am here today with another bonus episode of the podcast, The Stacks Unabridged. Today's episode, I am thrilled about. You might have heard last week, the New York Times released a list of the 100 best books of the 21st century. The book caused me to lose sleep, maybe go a little bit insane. It was a totally fantastic week to be a reader. And today I am joined first by Gilbert Cruz, who is the editor of the books section at the New York Times. He was in charge of this project. I get to ask him my most pressing questions about procedure and voters and how the list came together. And then I have put together a panel of three of my favorite reader friends to discuss the list, what we liked, what we didn't like, all of that. I am joined by Sarah Hildreth, Lupita Aquino, and Hunter McClendon, and we talk about this list. We're going deep, people. Now, if you're listening to this episode and it cuts off about 10 minutes in, that means you are not a member of the Stacks Pack. And these episodes are for supporters of the show. So head to patreon.com/thestacks, join the Stacks Pack, get access to this episode and all of our other bonus episodes. Plus, you can join the Discord, get the mega challenge, the nonfiction reading guide, all of that. And if that's not really your thing, you can go to tracythomas.substack.com and subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, to get access to this episode. Thank you to everyone who is a subscriber to either the Patreon or the newsletter. You make it possible for me to make this show and these kind of bonus episodes every single month. So I really appreciate it. All right, enough for me. Now it is time to get into this episode all about the New York Times best 100 books of the 21st century. All right, everybody, I am so excited. If you have been following me on Instagram, you know that the New York Times just released a list of the 100 best books of the 21st century, and it has occupied every single brain cell that I had, and some that I did not even know I had. It has become an obsession. It is all I talk about. And so when I got the opportunity to have this guest come on and talk to us about the list, my immediate reaction was, holy shit, yes. I am talking today to Gilbert Cruz, who is the editor of the New York Times books section. Gilbert, welcome to the Stacks.
Tracy, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for saying yes. Well, actually, you guys came to me and I was like, do they know how obsessed I am right now? Because it is all I'm thinking about is I missed a deadline last week because I couldn't focus on the books I needed to write about because I was so obsessed with this list.
I want to hear that people are screwing their lives up because they are obsessed with this list. Thank you.
I am. I was so obsessed with it. Last week, I had therapy and I was saying, oh my God, I talked to my therapist about the most hilarious thing. And someone was like, did you talk about the list? And I was like, no, okay, I didn't. It was a different thing. It was a nemesis thing. But I thought it was funny that someone thought that I had actually gone that far. And that, I guess, is the limit for me. I'm not going to waste my out-of-pocket therapy money on the list.
That's real money.
Because I have friends to do it with, you know. Okay, for folks who don't know, the list is the 100 best books as voted on by 503 literary luminaries, writers, librarians, influencers, editors, critics, etc. And then you guys took those votes, you aggregated them into a top 100. Highest vote getter, number 1, lowest vote getter, number 100, and everybody else somewhere hidden in the archive. Where did you get this idea and why did you want to do it this way?
Sure. So we are coming close to 2025. 2025, of course, is next year. But we said quarter century seems like a good time to start thinking about, and this is not definitive in any way, but just to start the conversation about what the great works of literature are and of nonfiction. The rules around this were, if you voted for a book on the list, it needed to be a book that was published post 2000 in the English language in America. And the reason we did that is because the New York Times Book Review, that's what we cover. We don't necessarily cover books that come out in England, which are also in the English language or in other languages outside of the U.S. And so 2025 is coming up. We've talked so much about the great works of the 20th century. And while we can keep talking about those, and we will talk about them forever, it seemed like there was an opportunity to do so now and focus on this century and start the conversation. And so we said, we can do this on our own. we can get the book review staff is about 25, 27 people. We have editors, we have critics. We could just do this on our own. But part of the book review is using outside writers, novelists, nonfiction writers, etc. Tom Hanks wrote a review for us this year to write about books for us. So why not do a thing that we don't do that often, which is go out to the world, go out to that literary world and say, let's do this together. And let's not just have it be the New York Times coming down from on high, but let's get as many people as possible in the conversation. So we reached out to, we came up with a bunch of names on staff. We came up with, I don't know, like 1,500 names. And the way we came up with those names is, we have our editors on our staff, their job is to reach out to writers all the time and to know who's out there and who is writing and who's reading and who's paying attention to books. And so we just went out to our staff of 20-something people and said, add as many names to this list as possible. And we did that over a month. We went out to other people in the New York Times and said, we got the writers down. We got the people in publishing down. Are there famous people in other fields who are big readers who should be on this list? We looked at the list as a whole. We sort of started to narrow it down. This person doesn't really engage with the world. They're probably not going to respond to this poll, even if we want them to. TK, famous writer. And then in the end, we sent emails out to 1,000 people, over 1,000 people, probably about 1,100 people. And 500 people responded.
That's pretty good.
And it was an anonymous poll.
Yes.
Poll. We said to people, don't be afraid about others seeing what your choices are. If you want to pick your own books, if you want to pick your friends' books, if you want to interpret best, because we didn't tell people what best was, we just said, you choose. Some people chose that to mean most pleasurable. Some people chose that to mean most influential. Some people chose that to mean a modern classic. Some people chose sort of a more strategic thing. I'm only going to put writers of color on my list because I think that other people that are voting are probably going to be under-emphasizing writers of color, et cetera.
Right.
So we didn't tell them what to do. We said it's anonymous, so you don't have to be worried about people seeing. But we did reach out to some very well-known writers and said, hey, we told you it was anonymous, but now that we did it, you want to help us out here and put your name on this thing? And so some of them did.
You're like, we're the New York Times, but we also need content. We'd love for you to show your face.
Help us.
Yeah. Okay. So many things you've said so far, I already have questions about. My first question, which was one of the first things you said, which was you all could have done it yourself in-house. How do you think the list would have turned out differently if it was just the 25, 27 of you books people?
There probably would have been more poetry on it.
Okay.
I think there are definitely some literary genres that probably would have been more well represented, such as poetry. Mm-hmm. And it's possible, although I can't guarantee, that genre books maybe would have been. I like to think genre books would have been more well represented than they are now, because in the end, you have an N.K. Jemisin sci-fi book on here. You have a couple things that are like thriller adjacent. But there's not any romance. There's not really any horror. There are no children's books. There's a lot that's not on here. There's a lot that is on here, but there's a lot that's not on here. Because as many as 100 books are, and that seems like a lot of books, when you think about all the books that are published in English in America every year times 24, it's actually not that many.
It's not that many. Okay, to that point, why did we, because I'm so invested, this is also my list now. Why did you all allow for books that were published in another language previously to 2000 to be on this list if they were published in English after that date?
Because that's when most American readers probably discovered a book. You look at a book like the Copenhagen Trilogy, which is a collection of memoirs that were published decades ago. Most English readers did not know this existed. They only knew it, and it only became a bestseller, and only became something that was on people's radar once it was translated and published into English. And so to us, that is when what we see as our zone of coverage, passionate readers in the English language speaking world really would have encountered a book.
Okay. And how much massaging did you all have to do before you sent things out to figure out what the ask was going to be? If you were going to allow books that were written previously to the date but had been translated, like were those debates that you and your team were having prior to sending it out?
Absolutely. I mean, once we set the rules, and I think we sent out the survey in early May.
Mhm.
Once we set the rules, we tried to put the rules on as many places as possible so that people, we know that people don't always read all the way through. And even with all those rules, there are still people that put books that came out before 2000 on this list. And so we tried to be as clear as possible. We tried to say, if you put a book on the list that doesn't fall into these categories, it will be invalid. Also, do not feel limited to the books that you think the New York Times is only interested in. If you want to put a children's book on there, if you want to put a genre book on there, go ahead. Clearly, people didn't listen to that part of it because those kinds of books are missing. I also think that the people who responded were probably writers who skew more towards a literary bent. Because the thing I learned, and there's so many lessons that we learned, and when we do our retrospective, we're going to go down the whole list of like, how could we have done this better? One thing that we really didn't truly understand until this poll went out to over 1,000 people is that so many of those email addresses got bounced back to us. I mean, so many people we thought we had their contact information, their agent's contact information, what have you, and we didn't. And so it was like 3 weeks of poking individual people, being like, hey, can you check your spam? Hey,
Right.
I don't know if you saw this. Tracy, you might find it very surprising to know that when a writer is writing a book, many of them just put a message on their email
I'm
that
not
says,
surprised.
don't bother me for 3 months.
Yes.
I was like, what?
No, I'm familiar with that because I interview authors and it is
What?
difficult to. Yes, they need their
That was
time
new
and their
to me.
space.
They do.
Oh.
They do. I just, we didn't take that into account.
All right, that is the end of this bonus teaser. If you were liking what you were hearing, you can listen to the entire episode by going to either patreon.com/the stacks and joining the Stacks Pack, getting access to the Discord, being able to participate in our virtual book club, and or you can go to tracythomas.substack.com and subscribe to Unstacked, where you're going to get my writing about books, pop culture. You're going to get other exclusive author interviews, and of course, these bonus episodes. So go to one of those 2 places, join us, get to hear the rest of this episode, and support the work that I do by being a part of these wonderful communities. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the stacks.